I think that's a tip that's important for people who follow a keto diet relatively long term to keep in mind. It's different than if you include like a moderate portion of carbohydrate foods every once in a while. That's not going to be as bad as if you have this whole full out meal, carb containing refined. Huge shock, which I see like, actually way more than I was expecting to. So that's an insight that I think is important for people to recognize is happening and be aware of and plan accordingly. So if you think, you're not really that tempted by carbs, you don't really care, like it's not a big deal, then it's probably perfectly healthy to have these higher fasting glucose levels when you're keto adapted and you're not having any swings. Probably perfectly fine. There's no indication that this is a bad thing, even though it may look like prediabetes traditionally. But if you are tempted by carbs and you go on and off and kind of swing around, it might not be the best thing for you. Then you might want to just try a generally low carbohydrate diet instead.
Yeah, I think that's a good point for people that get really excited and then want to have that cheat day. It's unclear, is that even worse for you than just having, as you mentioned, just like kind of a more mellow, low carb diet that might not be as strict, like zero carb or ketogenic necessarily. As far as I know, that literature is open. It's like no one has done that kind of comparison study, but I think it's kind of intuitively and mechanistically, okay, you're definitely doing some sort of trade-off there. If you shock your system once a year, probably okay. But if you're shocking once every 3-4 days or something, then that doesn't look like a shock. It looks like almost like a chronic back and forth.
Concerning. Yeah. And the research is open-ended on this, so we don't totally know. I'd be really interested to see a study done on this because I think that it actually affects a lot of people. But some people seeing that high fasting glucose levels, though, it really bothers them. A lot of these people want perfection. They're looking for everything to be perfect and optimized. And so it really bothers them. And so I have been able to lower that fasting glucose level by just including some strategic whole food based carbohydrates. So like a normal small portion of something like sweet potatoes or berries, low glycemic fruit after a workout when you're really insulin sensitive. So you avoid any spike, but your body's getting used to every once in a while seeing a little bit of carbohydrates. And they're still staying in ketosis most of the time. This isn't usually affecting them. And their fasting glucose levels do lower with that. So to me, that's really interesting. Again, we don't know how important it is to lower those fasting glucose levels in that type of person. But it's interesting to me to see that when we give a little bit of glucose at the right time, where it's not going to have any detrimental effect to what you're trying to achieve with your ketosis or your keto diet, then you do see these lower levels. So I almost think of it as you're maintaining metabolic flexibility in the sense that you're still teaching your body that I can use carbs every once in a while. I can use glucose every once in a while, but I can also run off of ketones and I can also run off of fatty acids and all these other different fuels. So